speaking with Nick Waterhouse. Nick, for you, so what have you been checking out musically during all of this?
Oh,
Whether old stuff,
man.
new stuff?
Yeah, well, I have a good friend. I got to be good friends with him. He's in New York City. His name's Ben Pirani, and he has a LP out on Coal Mine Records, which is an independent. They
Right.
put out some of the like Duran Jones and the Indications and the Delvin Lamar organ trio records and stuff.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
But Ben is a killer writer, and he has some real like gentle, sweet soul kind of writing habits, and so he's been sharing some demos with me for his next record that I'm really excited about. I mean, being stuck at home meant that I got to dig into my boxes. I have over maybe 15,000 45, so I was pulling out stuff
You
that
said
was like
15,045.
yes, yeah. I was pulling out stuff that was like old, new, old stuff that I had bought on tour and I had like stuck away because I was only home for 2 days. So it was like a period of rediscovery for me because I had really just been working and touring for the last like basically decade. And I mean, I got really, really into finding all these records that Maxwell Davis arranged, who was a tenor player out of L.A. He did a lot of like rhythm and blues and some pop records in L.A. here, and like he would do stuff on the Chattahoochee label and work with guys like Lieber and Stoller and work with H.B. Barnum and Lou
Yeah.
Rawls and all these dudes. So I was getting back into my record collection, which is a of all the things to do with a international tragedy. Like I felt like that was the way to handle the pandemic for me. It was keeping me sane.
Go through the record collection. That's pretty cool. You mentioned H.B. Barnum. I mean, there's also like think about David Axelrod,
Oh
some of
yeah.
the arrangers. I mean, obviously there's a Pee Wee Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
There's in the
Mm-hmm.
early '70s, but there's so many amazing arrangers that came through that jazz Nilu and Maxwell Davis, and I was thinking he also did a lot of the BB King stuff, right?
Yes,
For
that's
BB
right.
King in the
Yeah,
'50s,
yeah.
that horn section.
I love kind of tracing that lineage too, because then you figure out like it's almost like it's like you're in a forest and then you get to a big clearing and you're like, whoa, there's 40 records, and so then you almost make like an album out of these independent works that a arranger did like that, and then you can listen to them all consecutively and like really get in the atmosphere of it. And
Right.
yeah, those are absolutely guys like that. I love Axelrod. He's amazing. The label I'm on, they were a part of the family of Stone's Throw and Now Again Records, which
Oh,
reissued
okay.
Axelrod stuff. And so I had a really cool conversation with Egon, who runs Now Again, a couple years back about Axelrod because he was really tight with him and had all these
Mm,
crazy stories.
oh,
And
yeah.
I can't even imagine how just hanging with that guy for an afternoon must have been nuts.
My God, I can't have between the Lou Walls and then Miriam Makeba and then of course Cannonball. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't. And then his own stuff.
And the Harold Land records he produced.
Oh,
Those
right.
West Coast hard bop records are really great. The
I,
Jazzland stuff.
yeah, I forgot that's Axel Rock. I totally
Yeah,
forgot about that.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah, yeah.
Geeking out with Nick Waterhouse here on Jazz 90.1. So Nick, for you, this the craft of songwriting. Some
Hmm.
people hear the words, then the music comes. Some people hear the music, then the words come. How about you? How does it work for you in terms of the
Mm.
process?
I'm a I'm like a I see myself as a schizophrenic creator where there's like two personalities inside of me because
Yeah.
there's a and I kind of think not to like uh toot my own horn in regards to like I don't think it's any great shakes, but I'd say that one of the things that defines my work and I think is worthwhile is my words. Like I grew up in the San Francisco poetry and literature scene. Like I that was where I went to university and I studied with. I have a degree in literature. I did a lot of writing. I hung out a lot around the Lawrence Ferlinghetti zone.
Wow.
Um, so I try to not write lyrics that are cliched, and I also try to write lyrics that are in the poetic tradition of sort of the modern American language. And so like people, like Frank O'Hara and Kenneth Patchen and all these types are the ones who really influenced my verbal the aspects of my songs. And then musically, I really think there are huge blocks of songs that are sort of fully arranged, and all, production decisions are made before I'm even bringing them to the band. So I try to weld those two, you know, like sometimes songs for me will be words first or fragments of words that I then find a rhythm around, but there's already an inherent, like the tradition of poetics is its breath, right? And its time. And so I think that helps me solve the problem sometimes of whether it's words or music first, because traditionally the words already have to have a musicality to them if I'm bothering to make it through the first draft of composing them.
Wow. Speaking with Nick Waterhouse. So Nick, what I also love about your sound and music is like, I'm a big Stax fanatic. And so I just love how Steve Cropper and what Barry just had the mix so deep with the vocals. Sometimes you wouldn't hear all the words, you got the feeling of it, but you wouldn't be able to hear all the lyrics just right. Or you think, did he say that? What did they? I love how you do that as well in terms of like you bring in the mix. So talk about that. That's an old ancient art form. So
yeah,
2021.
That's a funny thing, because that's almost like this period of time of making records here and now.
Right.
Most professionals would tell me that that's unprofessional to do. And I actually see that as like I'm glad that you brought this up, because this is something that I love about records, not old records, but those kinds of records, especially Southern Soul. I feel that sometimes makes the song more exciting. It makes the listener it makes the listener lean forward into the song while they're listening to it. And it also puts the emphasis on the fact that like the music and the words are all of a piece. It's not just a singer on top of a song. It's that this is a performance right now, right? Like it's all together. It's happening all together. And so a lot of my cues come from that sort of like ramshackle tradition, which, you know, like reading about somewhere like Stax, it's crazy. In 1966, you know, Tom Dowd comes down from New York and he's like, what are you guys doing? The technology you have here is like 1958. Like, I haven't worked on a record with this bare bones a setup since then, you know? And I always really liked that. This also, it messes with the concept that there was a stasis, or like in this year only this was happening. And so I took that as a big influence in my own approaches, like sonically, to what I was doing.
Speaking with Nick Waterhouse, it's funny you mentioned that, just because I just love that approach of just not songwriting and songcraft, but using the band as part of that. I mean, I guess another point would be like the old Exile on Main Street from the Stones era, where they were doing that. And people up the basement sound, essentially.
Murky, yeah, murky, yeah.
Very murky, very soupy sound. So again, with also shout out Jim Stewart from Stax, since he's very much with us.
Well, I think that stuff too. It's like if you watch film, right? Like older movies. A big thing that they talk about, like the big artistry of the golden era of Hollywood, right? Like the stuff they snuck in that later cinema would be like, oh, mise en scene and chiaroscuro and all that stuff. Yeah. It was like German expressionist lighting being used in another way. And I think that shadows and light in motion pictures are a lot like what this murk or depth or these things that you're talking about, like I feel that music has sort of become monolithic in its, again, what's professionally accepted. Like there are times that I've been on other people's sessions and we'll be doing something and it's like, oh, well, we can't do that. And it's like, why? They're like, well, it's going to sound bad. And it's like, well, what's bad? Like, you know.
Well, you're challenging. But
yeah.
You're philosophical with it, huh?
So, those are decisions that I think are now artistic, you know, and just like folk paintings from Mexico from the 1780s that some painter is going to be into in the 30s and does his modernist mural and says like, I was really taking cues from that. Well, the guy who was painting it in the 1700s in Mexico wasn't making a conscious decision sometimes about that type of thing.
Right.
But it was powerful because it was affecting you as art.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really dig that yeah, the depth that comes from making decisions like those. And you're committed too, because you're just like,
Right.
this is how it sounds, you know, come into my world.
Yeah.